Okay, all right, let's get things started. So, kia ora, I'm Jessie. You would have just seen me on the other room. It's amazing how quickly you can jump between rooms on this cool thing. So I'm your weaver for this room for today. So I'll be here all afternoon, just weaving things together, drawing some conversations together and helping people to connect. But it's not about me, it's about our awesome Cordero starters that we've got lined up for today. But before I introduce our first session, I just did want to do a little bit of admin and mention that we've got a collaborative document for this session and every other session today. So just dive on into the program and you will be able to access the collaborative document for this session. Really do encourage you all to jump in there and put your own thoughts in, put on your email address if you want to keep in touch afterwards, because that's the whole point of an unconference, is to actually connect with people and get some action going. So James has just posted the program in the chat. We've got James here and Stuart here. You'll see them, they've got little asterisks in front of their names. They're our two tech wizards who are going to be making everything happen over the next half an hour. But that's the admin stuff done. Now I'd just love to introduce you to Ben and Mark, who are our two Cordero starters. They're going to be speaking to you about empowering Kiwis to take action on climate change. And hopefully we've got them. Mark's here, yep, perfect. He's a co-host. Ben's here, awesome. There we go. Over to you guys.
Hi everyone, thanks so much Jessie, and great to see so many people keen to empower themselves hopefully and other Kiwis to take action on climate change. My name is Ben Gleisner, recently returned from the UK, so I've been back in New Zealand for about 4 weeks, very happy to be here. And yeah, Mark, do you want to quickly introduce yourself and then we can get into the session?
Okay, kia ora tātou, ko Mark Christensen aho. So I'm going to speak a little bit later about a specific project that we've been working on around helping people to engage in climate change offsetting.
Great, so yeah, the run of the session, just to quickly give you an overview, will be, I'll spend about 5 minutes introducing you to an idea that we have coming to New Zealand, and I'll do 5 minutes of that, and then Mark, as you said, will add a few minutes more at the end, and then we're quite keen for at least half of the session to be sort of an open forum. We've got, I think, close to 50 people, so we'll see how that goes, but we'll just see how everyone feels at the end of the sort of chat from myself and Mark. Just in terms of introduction, my name is Ben, and I've spent about 20 years thinking about how we can change the world for the good. I started working 20 years ago building music festivals, raising awareness for sustainability in Golden Bay. I've worked as an economist at the Treasury in New Zealand here, working on the International Climate Change team. I led the Living Standards Framework development on the Wellbeing work in government, and I've spent 10 years setting up a small startup called Conscious Consumers, which has now morphed into a global tech company. We've got 18 staff in the UK and 5 here in New Zealand. And the mission of our organization is to help you as individuals align your spending with your values. I guess the premise of our idea is that while governments can make change, while charities can make change, you know, in the end, we should be looking at ourselves as well as vehicles for positive impact. So that's the context. So what I'm going to do is give you a little bit of a demo into a product that we have. So we've got a free app. It's been around for quite a long time now. I think Kate Frickberg, who's on this call, was one of our very early trustees. Hello, Kate. In what was essentially a charity we founded 10 years ago to take this idea into New Zealand. So we launched 10 years ago an app called Conscious Consumers. Some of you may have heard about it. And it really was an app to help you spend, I guess, more sustainably, more consciously. And yeah, we've basically been building that over the last 10 years. We changed our name from Conscious Consumers. No one really knows how to spell conscious. People don't really want to be thought of as a consumer, and generally decided that the name Kogo was a good one. And so sometimes I sign off my emails as let's Kogo, let's go change the world. So the principle behind it is an app to help you do that. So I'm going to share my screen to give you a little bit of a demo on how this product works. Effectively, in a second, you'll see a few pretty badges pop up on your screen. Can someone give me a thumbs up to tell me they can see that? Thank you, Jesse. So Kogo is all about, as I said, trying to help align your lifestyle or your spending with your values. So it's trying to help you think about issues around sustainability, such as, am I supporting businesses paying good wages? What's my impact on the climate? And so for about 10 years, we've done this through an app that you can sign up to for free. So the whole platform's free. And the app helps you understand sort of where you're spending and gives you recommendations of places that are better matched to your values. And so for about the first 7 years, we did it like an integration with a Google map or a list where you'd be able to find your local coffee shop that was selling vegan food, or find energy company that was renewable and things. So we've done it for a few years with a sort of Google search type product, Google Map. But what we realized was that it was really hard to get people to move their spending, or we didn't really know if they were moving their spending. Like, we didn't really know if we're actually getting the job done of helping people spend sort of more aligned with their values. So what we did in 2015 was integrate people's spending information around their credit card or debit card. So you could link your card and you could be recommended places. And when you bought from them, it would be like, hey, well done, Jesse, you just bought from a business that paid a living wage. So we built this integration, but we went about 2 years ago. I left New Zealand, sadly, to move to London with my wife and 2 daughters. And we launched the platform in the UK. And in the UK, what we managed to do was integrate a thing called open banking. So I'm going to show you how that works. Basically, after telling you what you care about, what our platform does is it allows you to connect any of your banking information. So I don't know if you know this, but banks use your data and sell it to marketing companies. And open banking is a sort of open technology solution which allows you to securely share your information with other companies that maybe offer you, good insurance products, or in our case, it'll help you align your spending with your values. So what we do after connecting your banking information is we then are able to show you how much of your spending is aligning with your values. So we look, for example, in the case of living wages, we can assess all your spending and align it with how much is your money going to living wage paying businesses. So we analyze all your data and tell you, well, you know what, 16% of your money is a living wage. But what we're about to launch in the UK in 2 weeks is a climate product, which analyzes all of your spending information and gives you a real-time carbon footprint based on your spending. But it also understands, looking at your spending, how much impact you're having on your carbon footprint. So we analyze your spending and say, well, hey, you're buying secondhand clothing, or we can see you're buying from renewable energy companies, or we basically are able to let you know the impact you're having on the climate. You can also then adopt new practices, for example, like say, well, look, I'm going to be a vegan, or I'm keen to be looking to be a vegan. It tells you how much impact that diet would have. And so then when you connect your bank, bank, we're able to look back through your spending and say, well, look, you're buying at grocery supermarkets, you're buying at restaurants. If you were a vegan, your impact on the climate would be nearly 1 ton less over a year than otherwise. So we're able to tell you how many other people are committing to that action, the collective impact it's having, and we give you some suggested businesses to try out. So say I commit to being a vegan, it tells me how long you've been doing that, and then it gives me a score of like, well done, 350 kilograms have been reduced from your footprint every year, or in the last 3 months. So what we're able to do and what we're trying to do is help Kiwis understand their impact they're already having through vegan diets, through buying secondhand clothes, through all the different actions, commuting by bike. And we then encourage you to adopt new practices to try and collectively improve the world. I'll do 1 more minute and then I'll hand over to Mark. Obviously, on the back of all the information we collect on people's spending, we're able to give you that real-time carbon footprint. So we're able to tell you each month how much your spending is contributing to climate change. We ask you things like, is it your joint account or is it a family account? So we can find out how much your bank account represents. So this is an individual's personal climate footprint, 817 kilograms. We obviously can drill down and tell you, say, in food and drink, how much of your impact is from that. And you can also get recognized. So this person, for example, is a vegan, So every time we see spending from that person's bank data, we can let them know, well done, by being a vegan, you've actually reduced your footprint by X kilos. So that's really the products. It's obviously a quick run through. We're launching with a banking partner here in New Zealand in August, and we're looking for early adopters, which we'll talk about later on. But at the end of the day, we're also about allowing people to offset. So at each month, we want them to encourage them to reduce their emissions, but then offset. We're partnering with South Pole, but people like Mark, who I'll hand over to now, have great ways of thinking about it in terms of a New Zealand context. So Mark, do you want to jump in now? I'll stop sharing my screen and hand over to yourself. And you're on mute.
Okay, thanks very much, Ben. Hopefully, how's that going? You can see that?
It looks beautiful, Mark. Yeah.
Right. So I just want to talk very briefly about just one aspect of the broad picture that Ben's just been talking about. It was actually the first time I've heard Ben talk about that, and what I was really interested in it is how conscious individuals can be and how deliberate around what we do and how we respond to climate change issues. There are a whole lot of people already thinking about or already working on at both at individual level, household level, and business level around offsetting their carbon footprint. So this is an idea which is not instead of doing other things. It's not instead of reducing emissions. It works alongside that. But there's a lot of people thinking, how do we do this smarter? So as I say, there's a whole lot of businesses who wanted to do these things. How do we make it easy for individuals and for households and for businesses to join a movement that would collaborate on these things? And while this applies right from the individual level through to large corporates, I'm really sort of thinking about the level of the small, medium enterprises, which is the majority of New Zealand businesses, as well as households and individuals. The concept is very simple. It is about looking to offset locally the carbon footprint that you have. Now, individuals and businesses have a choice in terms of offsetting. They can essentially look at doing, if we're talking about offsetting by growing trees, they can look at indigenous trees, native trees, or exotic trees. Now, I'm interested in the indigenous trees. So how do we do that locally? Because I'd really like to go and see the tree or the forest that I'm helping grow to offset my carbon emissions. And the concept is simple, is if we can team up, then we think we'll have a better outcome than doing it by ourselves. So take, for example, 10 small businesses. They all decide, having worked through their emissions profile and their footprint, that they need to contribute or help grow a hectare of indigenous forest each. So instead of everybody doing their 1 hectare, why not team up and find the best place that for 10 hectares together? And when I say the best place that in a local scene, that's in my case, Canterbury, where in Canterbury could we find the best place to help restore, help revegetate a 10 hectare area that has good biodiversity gains, but it also intersects with other environmental outcomes, such as reducing runoff into streams. So if you look at it in this wider sense, we actually can achieve an outcome which is just more than just carbon offsetting. Sure, that's the driver, but we end up with a situation where we achieve biodiversity and environmental gains. And so I'm the chair of the Banks Peninsula Conservation Trust, and we're currently looking at a project that does exactly this. And we think it's got the opportunity for providing a template for how this could happen throughout Canterbury and throughout the rest of the country potentially. So if I can get the right thing, the project is around the southern Port Hills, and we call it Returning Tui to the Port Hills. Te Kakahu Kahukura is the name of the project, and it's really restoring 1,000 hectares of forest, native forest, on the Banks Peninsula, right on the edge of Christchurch. We've identified an area which is strategic in terms of how the best place for Indigenous biodiversity to be restored, but it also has great outcomes in terms of reducing sedimentation into the Whakaropo Littleton Harbour into streams into the plains. So we're looking to create an opportunity there where we can team up as individuals and households and businesses to create a movement, places that we can go and experience in terms of our carbon offsetting. So that's the basic concept. And we think it's got potential to team up with organisations like Ben's to allow people to, again, to be conscious about where they want to do, what they want to do with their offsetting. So that's from me. So where to from here? Jesse and Ben, what do you want to do?
Maybe if you unshare your screen, it's a lovely photo, but yeah, there you go, so we can at least see everyone. But yeah, Jesse, do you want to have some thoughts around what you think? But we're keen to open up for a conversation, really, from people.
Yeah, I think we've got a group that's probably going to be manageable if we all stick together in one room. How we'll run it is what you can do is if you click the the participants button in the bottom of your screen, you'll see that you're actually able to raise a hand. It's a little blue raise a hand. So if you've got a question for either Ben or Mark, please do raise your hand and we'll just unmute each person as we go through to give you a chance to ask your question. Who's going to be first to kick us off?
Sophia.
Hello. I really enjoyed those two presentations and ideas, so thank you for sharing. I thought that I had, and it's a thought that I've been having for a while, is that councils, and I know Jesse's heard me talk about this a fair bit, councils are going towards carbon zero or carbon neutral anyway, and that's going to include a lot of offsetting at the date that they actually reach carbon neutrality, which I think for the Christchurch City Council's organisation is like 2030. And so at that point, they're probably going to have to put a lot of funding into offsetting their carbon emissions. I wonder if it would make sense for, instead of that money being spent at the end of that year, every year, that in the time leading up to it, the city actually invests in the communities putting in their own climate change initiatives to reduce their own footprint. So whether that's like sponsoring bicycles or planting more trees, you know, like various things that get individual and community carbon footprints reduced. Is that something that you think that like Kogo app could help with, like governments wise, or yeah, just a thought.
It's a good question. I'll jump in, just a quick one. Yeah, I didn't say at the beginning, but the idea is being co-founded with my best friend Melissa Keys, who's now responsible for getting Wellington to carbon zero in the council. So that's her role now. So I'm sure there will be chances to collaborate just because we catch up all the time. But yeah, I think your point's right, Sophia. When I worked at government at the UN for New Zealand on sort of figuring out what our carbon budget should be, in the end, it's not the government or it's not the council that's actually necessarily going to do it. It's going to be all of us. And I think, Wellington as a region, or all of your regions, for example, Mark down in Canterbury, is we actually individually can take action to reduce our emissions. And I think the sooner that councils and governments start realizing that it needs to be a collaborative effort, it can't just be the council putting in things and the council doing this, that we can actually together, I suppose, look to reduce our sort of regional footprints. But yeah, Mark, I totally agree with where Mark's heading, that in the end, if offsetting is required, it will be, I'm sure of it, because we aren't going to be able to get there by going our own actions down to zero. I think, yeah, local or regional sort of projects are a great way of having both co-benefits to sustainability as well as, making people feel more connected. Mark, do you have anything to add?
Well, I just agree with all of that. It is working together, I think, absolutely. And we've been starting to do that, talk with councils, in Canterbury. I think the question is sort of at what scale, and we have to do it at all scales. We have to do it at a personal level and at a national and at an international level. So where do you best engage? And I think everyone sort of has a view, but I think that there's some real force in having something that you can go and experience. And if we talk about the example of the Port Hills, people in Canterbury and Christchurch in particular, You know, we walk there, we bike there, and to be able to experience that, and you know, that's got a whole lot of extra benefits, not just in an offsetting perspective.
Cool. Thank you both for that. I think next person we've got is Dean Spicer. I'll just unmute you there. Or are you unmuted? You disappeared. Where did you go?
Yeah, thank you both for sharing those presentations. Just a quick one from me, and it was on the Kogo app. And Ben, did you say that the data analysis is available in the UK? Is it available here at this stage? I just wasn't sure. I was looking on the app, I couldn't find that feature.
Happy to clarify, yeah. So at the moment, New Zealand doesn't have this feature around connecting all of your banking information and analysing it against things like, do you support living wage businesses, or so it's not there yet. We launch in the UK the climate feature. So we've been in the UK live for 6 months with open banking. So we're one of the first companies in the world to integrate open banking into an app, certainly a sustainability app. But yeah, the plans for New Zealand as I've come back here, some of my team, Anna and Josh, maybe do a wave right now, and I think maybe Verena, but some of us are on the call, is that we've got a team here in New Zealand, and we're partnering with a New Zealand bank to bring the solution here in August. So you'll be able to connect any bank account. It's not just the bank that we're partnering with. You'll be able to connect any bank account and see your real-time carbon footprint and do all the things that I've presented today.
Cool. And just one follow-on question, and that is, from the UK experience, what sort of analysis do you have around the effect it's had on people's spending habits? I imagine it'd be quite profound, but I was just curious to sort of see what you found from that.
I'll give you one example actually from New Zealand, because as I said, in 2015 in New Zealand, we started to connect people's cards, like debit cards, and you can do that now in the app. And so one example is, and this is sort of how the program works, is, there was a local bar in Wellington called Rogue and Vagabond, and they looked at the data that we gave them, and they were like, wow, so many people care about the living wage. So we were able to show them that people were spending money in their business and near their business that cared about the living wage. So not only does the business then go, well, I might become living wage, is we're able to then show them, once they did go living wage, how many new people they were attracting. So we found in that case, the people that were already going there spent twice as much money in the following month after they went living wage, and they acquired 50 new people who had never been shopping with them before. So this whole idea, that's what's so cool. The whole idea is this whole movement is able to use sort of market forces. So I'm an economist, so I can tell you businesses do respond to people spending differently, and we want to be able to collaborate around our spending power to drive, hundreds of examples like that in terms of behavior change, both the consumers spending differently, but also then that drives change in business.
It is.
That's awesome. That's really, really exciting. Voting with your wallet. Love it. Wow. Awesome. Thanks everyone for your questions. I'm sure we could keep going, and I know there's a couple of questions we haven't had time to address. So what I'd suggest is, if your question hasn't been answered, chuck it in that collaborative document, and hopefully Mark and Ben can jump in there for a few minutes after this just to write out any answers to questions that are still outstanding. But I'll just hand over now to Ben or Mark, whoever wants to just make any concluding remarks.
Mark, you can go first, and I can jump in at the end.
Well, look, thank you very much, everybody. You could have rich, long conversations, I'm sure. So look, it would be great to connect with as many of you who'd want to keep on connecting and talking about these issues. So thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone. It's been great to, as I said, collaborate around addressing this climate, crisis. So yeah, I'll be online for maybe another minute or two if you want to just ask any quick questions. But yeah, thanks. Look forward to seeing you at other sessions.
Cool.
Thanks, Jessie.
Thank you so much, and thanks everyone for your participation. If you want to stick around in this room, you're most welcome to. We've got another really great session coming up in a couple of minutes with John Guerin and Nancy Gibson on pods, a practice for small groups and mutual support for strengthening networks. So stick around if you want to see that one. Otherwise, jump into that program and work out where you want to go next.